and really want to welcome all of you to this webinar. And I'm going to just kind of kick things off and tell you a little bit about what we do at CAREI and what we're going to accomplish tonight. And then I'm going to introduce the rest of the team who's going to do the heavy lifting tonight and talk with you about morphology. So at CAREI, we are an applied research center within the College of Education and Human Development. And our mission is pretty simple but powerful. We really are trying to bridge research and practice so that schools and districts can implement evidence-based approaches that truly make a difference for students. One of our four core areas of focus is literacy. And within that, the role of language and morphology in supporting reading comprehension, vocabulary, and overall success. So who we are, we really see ourselves again as that bridge between research and practice. And in real terms, what that means is that when districts are grappling with challenges, maybe it's how to strengthen literacy instruction, maybe it's how to implement an MTSS framework, we help connect them with the research and tools that actually work. So our vision is to try to make research accessible and actionable so that every student has the opportunity for equitable outcomes. One of the things that we hear most often from schools is how overwhelming it can be to sort through research and figure out what's practical. And we're really trying to simplify that and support implementation. So you can see on this slide that we're here today to talk about literacy. And we do a lot of work in that area. We also have a team that provides technical assistance around a multi-tiered system of support framework. We have supported the state of Minnesota in developing the Minnesota MTSS framework. Somebody put that, someone's talking.
Put on
mute. Thank you. So we provide MTSS technical assistance. We also have a group of folks that are conducting research to create new knowledge. And we have a core group of people that help districts evaluate different things that they're implementing and help really provide strategic planning and prioritize the results. So we operate in a number of different spaces, but we all have the same mission and vision. So tonight, our session is about cutting through the complexity and focusing on what matters, giving students powerful tools for reading and vocabulary growth through morphology instruction. We have a team of experts here who are deeply committed to advancing this work. And over the next hour, you'll hear insights, strategies, and practical guidance on how morphology instruction can be embedded into classrooms in ways that are accessible, engaging, and impactful for all learners. So let me just introduce our team. I'll start with Wendy Stitchen. Wendy is the Associate Director of Literacy at CAREI. Next, we have Laura Wolf, who is the Assistant Director of Development and Expansion. And last but not least, Mariah Marcel is the Assistant Director of Literacy. This team leads our work in professional learning and technical assistance in literacy. They bring a lot of experience as both educators and system coaches supporting districts across the country in strengthening literacy instruction. And each of them has a unique ability to translate research into practice, helping teachers see not only why morphology instruction, for example, matters, but also how to make it work in real classrooms. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Wendy, who will kick off our session. But I first want to alert you that we hope you stay on for the whole webinar because we're doing a giveaway. Mariah, can you advance? There you go. At the end of the session, we are going to do a random drawing and give away a CAREI Morphology flip book. So that's a picture of what it looks like. Wendy might be holding it in her hand right now and can show it to you, but please stay on so you have an opportunity to leave with a good resource. All right, Wendy, I'm tossing it to you.
All right, thanks, Kim. Yeah, stay till the end and we're going to do a drawing and we will ship you one of our morphology flip books. So with that, we're going to get started. We have a lot of content to go over tonight. So here are our goals that we're going to be hitting for tonight. And then let's just start by grounding ourselves in what is morphology and why it matters for students' literacy development. So Mariah, if you just go to the next slide. As we move through the slides tonight, I just want to emphasize that what we're sharing tonight is just a small window into a broader world of morphology instruction. There is such a wealth of research and strategies available, but our goal here is just to highlight a few of some practical high leverage ideas that hopefully can support you and your students right away. So here is Scarborough's reading rope. This is nothing new to this group. As we know, for skilled reading to occur, we must have both strands in place, word recognition and language comprehension, because all of these strands intertwine to produce skilled readers with strong comprehension. Morphology is the bridge between the language comprehension and the word recognition components of the rope. So as a result, instruction in morphology can support students' ability to decode while also strengthening their vocabulary, reading comprehension, and spelling. So as you can see by all the yellow stars on here, morphology touches many strands of literacy, which is what makes it such a high leverage practice. So when students really can understand how words are built, they become not only stronger decoders, but also stronger comprehenders. Word knowledge is really what gives them access to meaning across subjects and grade levels. That's why it's really essential for us as educators to understand how word structure is for ourselves so we can model it, teach it explicitly, and give students the tools to unlock the meaning independently. But before we dive into the research on why morphology instruction is so powerful, let's define what we mean. So a morpheme is the smallest unit of meaning in a language, and morphology is the study of morphemes in word structure. So on the screen here, you'll see some examples. So laugh is a morpheme on its own. Adding S makes it plural, so S is also a morpheme because it's meaningful. The word cook can stand alone or take a prefix like pre and a suffix like ed to form pre-cooked. So by learning to analyze words this way, students are able to develop that morphological awareness, which is the ability to recognize, understand, manipulate words in word parts. So this awareness is the foundation of effective morphology instruction. A significant reason for English's deep and complex orthography is really in the history of the language. So English has been influenced by many interactions with other languages throughout its history. Some experts speak of English as having many layers like a cake. So from the perspective of morphology, there are three main layers. The first layer is the oldest layer of English, and that's referred to as the Anglo-Saxon layer. English words with Anglo-Saxon origin tend to be common, simple words typically used in everyday speech. So they're words like girl, friend, horse, sheep, moon, sky, play, watch, light. It's common for words with Anglo-Saxon origin to have irregular spellings or include vowel teams, silent letters, and digraphs. The next layer with morphology is in the mindset of the Latin layer of English. So Latin began influencing English around the 1300s, and that was known as Old English, and it was starting to evolve into Middle English. It continued to influence English heavily during the Renaissance period. So English words with Latin roots tend to be academic words that represent sophisticated language that students may encounter in text. Some examples include explore, construct, spectator, transport, and many of the academic words used in literature, the social sciences, and physical sciences are Latin-based. Then the third area or the layer of English is the Greek layer. So during the Renaissance period, beginning in the 1400s, scholars interested in the classics brought many new Greek words into English. So scientists used Greek terms to name their new discoveries. So in general, words with Greek roots are more likely to be specialized, domain-specific words, and include terminology specific to the fields of math, science, and philosophy. Some examples include words such as chlorophyll, antibiotic, millimeter, pandemic. Um, so though there are three main layers of English from a morphological perspective, these were not the only influences on language. Some linguists would describe French, or even more specifically, the Norman French, as another era of the English language. So the Normans invaded and conquered England in 1066. And for about 400 years, the Normans ruled and imposed French as the language of their laws and systems. So during this time period, the upper class spoke French, but the common people still spoke English. So over time, thousands of French words entered the English language. So from the perspective of morphology, however, French is a Latin-based language. So it's difficult to separate French from the Latin morphology. So for this reason, French is depicted as the icing on the layer of the cake. It's also important to remember that languages are not static. They're constantly evolving and growing with the layers of the cake analogy in mind. We've chosen to depict the influence of all the other languages as sprinkles on the cake. So words from other languages have entered English throughout history. So how are morphemes helpful? Well, they're helpful for two reasons. Morphemes are helpful for one, they're larger, more meaningful chunks than graphemes. So when students are breaking down words by morphemes, there are fewer parts to process, which makes both the decoding and spelling easier. And then second, morphemes carry meaning. So that means they not only help students figure out how to read and spell words, but they also support their vocabulary growth and comprehension. So basically, fewer individual word parts to read is a lighter lift on decoding, which frees up cognition to make meaning from text. So let's talk about the impact of morphology. Researchers Goodwin and Ahn conducted two meta-analyses on the effects of morphology instruction. One focused on students with literacy needs and the other on all school-age children. Together, these studies included 33 independent studies. So both meta-analyses found statistically significant positive effects, not only on overall literacy outcomes, but also on specific subskills. So it was expected students would have their morphological awareness improve, but what was really interesting is also their decoding, phonological awareness, vocabulary, spelling, and reading comprehension all improved. So in other words, morphology instruction supports multiple layers of literacy growth. It's not just about word analysis, but the broader skills needed for skilled reading. Goodwin and Ahn also found that there were statistically significant positive effects for disaggregated groups of learners. This includes students with speech and language needs, multilingual learners, striving readers, students not identified as having literacy needs, and students with IEPs, including those with any type of IEP, as well as those with IEPs specifically in reading. So keeping this research in mind, we can see just how many benefits morphology instruction brings. For students, it explains irregular spellings, it supports accurate spelling, it helps them decode, understand complex words by breaking them into meaningful parts. And for teachers, morphology instruction strengthens multiple aspects of literacy, decoding, phonological awareness, spelling, vocabulary, and comprehension, really making it truly a high leverage practice for teachers to be using in their classroom. It also integrates naturally across content areas since students encounter multiphonemic words in every subject. And perhaps best of all, it's been found to be really motivating. Students love becoming word detectives, uncovering meanings and spelling connections wherever they go. All of this highlights why morphology instruction is such a powerful and impactful instructional practice. So now let's move into what does this look like in the classroom and across our day, regardless of the content you teach or the work you do with students. And it's important to emphasize morphology is not limited to reading instruction. It shows up across subjects, and we can help students notice and use it wherever words carry meaning. So let's talk about some research. So researchers Dr. Kiefer and Dr. Lasso conducted studies that identified 4 key principles of effective morphology instruction. And then in their 2000 study, they added guidance for Spanish-speaking multilingual learners, noting that for students with developed knowledge of Spanish, morphology could be or should be taught alongside cognates. So here we've broadened that idea into a 5th principle. So really making cross-linguistic connections. So this is supported not only in their work, but across broader research on literacy development for multilingual learners, translanguaging studies, and Dr. Gloria Ramirez's work on morphological awareness in multilingual learners. So really the key takeaway is that morphology instruction is even more powerful when we help students connect word knowledge across their languages. So let's take a closer look at what these principles of effective morphology instruction look like in practice. We're not going to have time to dig into all 5 of them, but we're going to briefly touch on a few of them. So let's start by looking at principle 2. That's teach students to use morphology as a cognitive strategy. So this means showing them not just the word parts, but how to think through the words step by step. And there are 4 stages for analyzing and understanding words. And it's important to frame these as stages in thinking, not a checklist of lesson steps. This way, students can really internalize the strategy and then apply it independently as they come across unfamiliar words in text.
Good talk.
So, I think somebody needs to be muted. First, students must recognize they lack knowledge or deep understanding of a word. So in our example here, a student encounters the word introspection. The student recognizes that they can read it, but they don't quite understand what it means. So the student then moves this to the next stage where they analyze the word for morphemes that they recognize. Now in this example, the student recognizes 3 morphemes: the prefix intro, which means in or inward, the base spect, which they recall means look, see, or watch, and then the suffix ion, which they know signals a noun and means an act as a state of. So the 3rd stage in the process now requires the student to hypothesize this meaning of the word based on its part. So the student's hypothesis is that introspection means the act of or looking inward. So now the 4th and final stage in the process is to check the hypothesis against the context of the sentence or passage. So the student rereads the sentence. Her feedback was prompted quiet introspection that led him to change his mind. The student notices after receiving some feedback that it would make sense for people to look inward and perhaps change their mind. So the hypothesis holds true. The student can move forward with the understanding that introspection is the act of looking inward. So this cognitive strategy has the aim of helping students understand words based on their morphemes. Now we're going to look at another strategy. And another researcher, Dr. Peter Bowers, developed guiding questions to help students use their morphological knowledge to understand word spelling. So let's take the word pleasant. A student knows it means enjoyable, but not overly enthusiastic. So the next step is asked, how is the word constructed? So the student hypothesizes it comes from the base please plus the suffix ant. To test this, the student looks for related words, which confirms, like with the word displease, confirms the base and then shows the final silent E can appear in some forms. So when they bring it all together, the student sees that the EA spelling in pleasant reflects its relationship to please and pleased. This example shows how morphology gives students a process for reasoning through spelling rather than just memorizing it. So principle 3 is all about scope and sequence. Teachers really should focus on high frequency, high leverage morphemes and build from simple to complex, starting with familiar words like teacher and then moving to more academic ones like practitioner. Instruction should connect to content, spiral across grades, and include ongoing review to deepen learning over time. Now let's look at principle 5, What does it look like to make cross-linguistic connections in relation to morphology? Well, encourage educators to teach morphology in relation to those cognates. This is an important way to embody a translanguaging stance in the classroom. And cognates are words across languages that look or sound similar and share meaning. So Spanish and English share many because of the Latin roots, but cognates show up in other languages too. And even when the whole word isn't a cognate, individual morphemes can be. So if we think about the English word reused, it has the prefix re. And while the French and Spanish words look more like English word reutilized, they also both use re as a prefix, and the prefix has the same meaning, which means again. So by pointing out these kinds of morphological cognates, we help students see cross-linguistic connections that expand and strengthen their linguistic repertoires. This not only supports vocabulary growth, but also affirms the value of languages students already know. Now let's look at some tools teachers can use to teach morphology using some of the practices we just reviewed. So here's morphological families. So morphological families help students identify words that are related and to rule out words that are unrelated due to a spelling or meaning difference. So even within morphological families, students may sort words by parts of speech or common affixes. If we look at a morphological web, that's organized around a base element, expanding beyond a single word family to include related like cousin words. So students can also spot words that don't belong. For example, airport doesn't connect to the base port, meaning CAREI. Word webs help students think critically about morphemes and then grow their network of related words over time. When we look at a morphological matrix, this is useful because it shows many related words in a compact form. So another benefit to this tool is that it can improve students' structural and morphonemic analysis. So students practice building words without seeing spelling changes concretely reflected. In addition, if students create their own matrix, they can decompose words into their constituent morphemes, working backwards from spelling changes and then considering how the affixes should be grouped in the chart. So if you look, look at how many words are in that compact way to store related words on that slide there. That's a lot of words to build. And then the next thing is teachers can use different references, either printed dictionaries or digital tools like Edam Online to investigate interesting words. These resources reveal a word's history, how it entered English, and often explains unexpected spellings. That's why if you notice, even the National Spelling Bee competitors ask about a word's language or origin. So these etymological tools can also help determine whether two words truly share a base. So for example, looking at port, a student might expect portal to connect to the Latin base meaning carry, but the etymology shows it's actually from an Anglo-Saxon meaning gate or entrance. So it's the same spelling, but different roots. And finally, students can use these resources to explore a base more deeply and discover additional related words, broadening their understanding of the language connections. So morphology instruction really has two aims. On one hand, we want to give students explicit instruction, teaching them those high leverage morphemes and how words are built. At the same time, we want to equip them with growing their own morphological awareness, using morphology as a strategy to figure out new words on their own. So in short, we want to give students fish, but we also want to teach them to fish. So now we're going to look in this short video clip, you're going to see an authentic example of guiding principle 5 in action, making those cross-linguistic connections. This is especially powerful for our multilingual learners. Notice how the student draws on his home language to spell the word precipitation, connecting it directly to the Spanish word. This kind of transfer shows how students can leverage what they already know to support spelling and vocabulary in English.
I'm just going to stop sharing and reshare because I forgot to click the sound button. I apologize. Here we go. Nope, wrong screen. Let's try one more time. There.
Now, this young man I heard say it was a cognate, right? Is that what you said? Okay, what is it in Spanish? Precipitación. Precipitación. Did I say it right? Yeah. So he used what he knew about the word precipitación to spell precipitation.
So with that was in a high school classroom that was completely authentic, and you can see how powerful it is once students are able to make those connections themselves. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mariah, and she's going to talk a little bit about what does this look like in a curriculum.
Thanks, Wendy. Hi, everybody. So now we're going to look at, just like Wendy said, taking those principles that Wendy went over of effective morphology instruction and what does that look like? I will mention I'm going to put the QR code up again, but if you want to learn more about functional phonics and morphology, there is a QR code. You can just take a quick picture on your phone, scan that, but I will show it at the end if you miss it. Don't worry about it. All right, so through our work, we found that even after high quality professional learning, like you got a little bit of a taste of earlier with what Wendy was sharing, many teachers face challenges integrating those evidence-based morphology practices into their existing curricula. So in response to this need, we developed functional morphology, which was a new curriculum that was designed to be an extension of our existing functional phonics K2 program. This curriculum provides a clear and dedicated space for explicit instruction in morphology, ensuring that teachers and students have the tools they need to succeed. While the curriculum does provide a robust foundation, just like Wendy mentioned earlier, the work of embedding these instructional practices across various content areas is really crucial as a crucial next step for all teachers. Our ultimate goal is for teachers and students to confidently use these routines for decoding, spelling, and understanding complex words throughout their day. So this comprehensive integration ensures that morphology instruction extends beyond a single curriculum and becomes just a routine part of daily instruction. And here are some just images of our series, the teacher manuals. Behind them are the workbooks, and then our morphology wall card set. So remember when Wendy told us all about the layers of English? Our functional phonics and morphology curriculum is built directly on this idea. So we focus on the Anglo-Saxon, the Latin, and the Greek word parts that form our language. But our program is designed with these language layers in mind and is organized into 3 distinct series. We call them Series 1, Series 2, and Series 3, instead of using grade level titles. This allows us to use the materials with older students who might also need support with their literacy skills. By learning these, students gain the tools to figure out new words, their meaning, their spelling, and their structure. So as you can see kind of next to the cake, we have Series 1 is our typical 3rd grade, which is called Foundational Morphology. Series 2, typical 4th grade, is Latin. And then Series 3, typical 5th grade, is Greek. And we're going to learn more about that right now. So Series 1, that typical 3rd grade, starts with Anglo-Saxon words and affixes. Just like Wendy said, Anglo-Saxon words are common words just like friend. Students learn how to change the meaning of these words by attaching morphemes to the Anglo-Saxon words, like adding a prefix un and the suffix ly to the word unfriendly. And that's in typical 3rd grade. In Series 2, typical 4th grade, instruction focuses on the Latin layer of language, where students will learn the meanings of Latin prefixes, suffixes, and base elements to spell, decode, and understand longer words. Here, we see the word prescription. Students identify the prefix pre, meaning before, the base element script, meaning right, and the suffix ion, meaning the act of or state of. And then finally, in Series 3, Typical 5th grade, students learn about Greek morphemes. Greek morphemes behave a little bit differently than the others. Greek has what we call combining forms. These are word parts combined to make words and can be placed into different positions of the word. Here you see the word photophobia, which contains 2 Greek combining forms, photo and phobia. Now we're going to take a little closer look at the units within each series. So the first series marks the shift from phonics instruction to advanced word study. And Unit 1 introduces students to morphology and helps them begin reading and spelling multisyllabic words by recognizing base words and affixes. Many of the prefixes and suffixes reviewed here were first introduced in 1st and 2nd grade during functional phonics and include those most frequently used in English. Unit 2 then dives deeper into the high-frequency suffixes and the spelling rules that go along with them. Unit 3 focuses on high-frequency prefixes, helping students recognize and apply them across a variety of words. Unit 4 introduces chameleon or assimilated prefixes, which are those that change spelling slightly to support pronunciation and can be somewhat challenging for kids. Unit 5 offers a short introduction to Latin roots, giving students a preview of what's to come in the next year. Series 1, as you can see on the table, is intentionally shorter, allowing teachers time to reteach or reinforce keyword recognition skills as students transition from phonics to morphology. Of course, we start teaching morphology in kindergarten, but it's just kind of that bigger shift to now we're wanting students to look at words, as Wendy explained, in those largest chunks of words, which is by meaning, instead of sounding things out by morphemes or even syllables, trying to get them to that morpheme level. And this flexibility in Series 1 just provides that time, and especially useful when formative assessments may reveal some specific instructional needs. If we look at both Series 2 and 3 now, you can see that's organized a little bit different, but the first unit is always a review of the previous year's content, and these review units revisit just the common affixes and reinforce routines for reading and spelling multisyllabic words, like I said, by breaking them into morphemes. We're always doing that all the way across each series. But the remaining units in these series are theme-based. Each theme is designed to connect with meaningful vocabulary while helping students internalize new morphemes they're learning. For example, if you look in the middle in Series 2 and go down to Unit 5, you can see that students study Latin roots that align with the theme taking action, supporting both vocabulary development and comprehension. So we're going from the series, there's 3 series for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Then we went to the unit, and now we're going to kind of look into a lesson. So each lesson includes 5 days of instructional materials and follows a pretty consistent format. Each day follows a predictable routine and is strategically built to support students in growing understanding and slowly taking ownership over the meanings of those morphemes across the lesson. And functional morphology takes about 20 to 30 minutes daily to complete all the lesson components. So within one lesson, that means every day, within each day of the lesson, every day students engage in a warm-up with review and receive explicit introduction of the focal morphemes, followed by guided, applied, partner, and or independent practice. I'm going to highlight how we introduce the new focal morphemes next. So here's an example of on the slide of one of our slides, but during the introduce new concept component, the teacher will explicitly introduce the focal morphemes for that particular lesson. Students will revisit the introduce new concept slide each day, so for those 5 days in that lesson, as it does just repeat throughout the week. Information pertaining to etymology, the history of the morphemes, the meaning, and any applicable spelling patterns or rules are presented at this time, shown to the students, making that really explicit and clear. And to support that, there's really explicit scripting for teachers that's provided in the teacher manual and in the speaker notes. And they include example words with student-friendly definitions. This is an example slide for an introduce new concept from day 2. So you can see how the students are provided the meaning and the examples of the focal morphemes. On day 4 and 5, you can see that we built in some function work. So students are given a sentence and need to identify the part of speech or the function of the keyword in the sentence. There's also a different prompt to check for student understanding each day so that the slide looks similar across each day of the lesson, but there's always a different prompt for teachers to use to check to see if students are understanding and retaining the focal morphemes for that lesson before moving into that practice. After the concept is introduced, there are a variety of guided practice as well as partner and independent activities the students get to engage in. We're going to showcase 2 for today's webinar, and the ones that we're showcasing build on the ones from that Wendy shared earlier. We have lots of those, word webs and the table built in, but we wanted to show some other ideas as well. The first one on the screen is called Find, Write, Mark. And this is a guided practice activity, and the goal is for students to find the word in the sentence that contains that focal morpheme for the lesson, write it down, and then mark the word parts to better understand its meaning. The slide is animated, so right now you're seeing the full slide after the teacher had clicked. So it's animated so that the sentence appears first. They read. The teacher can read. The students can chorally read, or you can choose a student to read that sentence, and then the students find the word. Once they find the word that contains the focal morphemes, they write it down in their workbook. And the blue word comes in on the teacher's click for students to check that they found the right word. But it just comes in by itself without the circle or the underline. So students then work to mark up the meaningful word parts of the word by circling the prefix, underlining the base, or boxing any suffixes. Once students are done with that, then the teacher clicks again and the animated markings pop up. So students can check their work, make sure they marked it up correctly, and then they would reread that word. This activity typically has 3 to 4 sentence examples and takes about 4 to 6 minutes. We're going to watch a video of this functional morphology routine in action. So in this video, it's a 3rd grade class, and they are on their second find, write, mark sentence. So the teacher, they've already done one example. The teacher modeled and guided the students through that first example. And now we get to see how she supports them through the second example.
In college, you often take midterm exams when you're about halfway through a course. Talk to somebody around you. What word? And then practice writing it and doing those circles and underlines. Make sure, do you have your prefix circled and underlined? Okay, hold it. I'm hearing the right answer for sure. Think about what that might mean then too. Not just, hey, I found it, but also how does having that prefix change the meaning of a word? All right, I heard it a lot. Say it together. What word is it? Midterm. All right, you're going to check your work. I'm going to show it up on the board. You're going to check your work. And then I want to know what you think it might mean. How does adding mid to the word term change what it means? Check and see. Did you circle and underline correctly? Yeah. What do you think it means if I say midterm? This is kind of I think it's halfway. Halfway. Yeah, I agree. Like a term in college is like a chunk of time. Like I might take one class for a term. I might take another class for the next term. So midway through the term, they're going to give me an exam, a test. Yeah, to see if I've been paying attention to my work. Midterm. All right.
Great. So that was fun to just see it really live with kids. So now we're going to go to our next guided practice activity. And this one is on day 3. So the other example was on day 1. This example is on day 3. And this is called unknown word solving. For this activity, students are asked to practice reading words in context of a sentence and develop a definition or a meaning of the word using their knowledge of the morphemes in the word and the context from the sentence. Again, the blue text is animated for the teacher to click and show when ready. So it's not going to show that blue part. It'll just show that the black word and sentence at first. These words are likely unknown words, and we're trying to make that that way. So they're typically considered tier 3 vocabulary. The intention here is for students to be exposed to an actual unknown word and think about what that word means based on the morphemes in the word that they've been learning and the context in the sentence. There's not an expectation for students to be able to use these words necessarily independently, but we want to get them, the skill and the thought process of how to do this when you would come to an unknown word. So here's an example with the word biomechanics, which would be a 5th grade example. And now we get to watch another video. We're going to watch another video of this particular activity in action. Here we go.
All right, so now we're going to move on to some more unknown words, some little known words, some words that you're maybe not used to in your everyday reading or even hearing or speaking of language. You're going to see the word. There's going to be a sentence to give you context, and then you're going to turn and talk with a neighbor for about 30 seconds as to what you think the word might mean. You don't have to write anything down for this part. So the first word is, now, before this week, I said vivacity for that word, but it's actually vivacity. Everyone say vivacity. Vivacity. Yes, vivacity. Her normal vivacity was gone, so her parents knew she was very sick. Turn and talk to your neighbor about a definition for that word. Vivacity. Her normal vivacity was gone. Liveliness? Her normal liveliness was gone, so her parents knew she was very sick. Would that make sense? Would that make sense? Yeah? What do you think? Ooh, there was 30 seconds. Okay, who has a definition? LJ.
Like normal life, like her normal life is gone, but her parents also like sick.
Okay, I like it. Yeah, Cece?
Phenomenal, like aliveness, like bright happiness.
So since that was missing, something must be wrong, right? Yes.
Liveliness?
Liveliness.
You were gonna say liveliness too.
Same thing? Okay, Jiho?
Like her mood or maybe her emotions.
All right, let's see what the definition is. Being full of life and energy. Did you get it right? Is what you said about what it means? Her normal state of being full of energy was not there, so her parents were like, uh-oh, something must be wrong. All right.
All right. I hope you enjoyed a little taste of morphology instruction using functional phonics and morphology. To learn more about our curriculum, you can, like I said before, you can scan that QR code on the slide right now, or you can visit the website on your screen, that z-link, z.umn.edu/functional phonics. If you maybe, it's about 6:45, if you may be feeling a little bit overwhelmed, it's a lot of information and you're wanting how can I dig deeper into all of this, because an hour for morphology is just not enough. Laura is now going to share with you how you can deepen your knowledge even more. Take it away, Laura.
Thanks, Mariah. Yeah, she's 100% correct. There are really limited resources available right now for equipping our educators with professional learning that they need in order to elevate morphology to its rightful place in a comprehensive structured literacy classroom. So that is why we developed CAREI. CAREI is our comprehensive professional development, and the ALL part stands for Advancing Language and Literacy. This course elevates morphology to its rightful place as that bridge between word recognition and language comprehension. More importantly, our focus in CAREI is to operationalize every element of literacy in structured literacy classrooms. So what you're looking at here is the learning path of CAREI. As I said, it's comprehensive, and this design is very intentional so that educators can understand, implement, and operationalize the structured literacy in the classroom. But also notice here where we place morphology. Its strategic placement at Module 5 puts it there just as that bridge between word recognition and language comprehension. So let's take a little bit of a deeper look at what the structure of CAREI looks like within this professional development. As educators work through the eight modules that you saw on the previous slide, they are taken through research, evidence-based instruction, assessments, MTSS, and equitable and inclusive practices that support them in helping their students become skilled readers and writers. Educators are first going through an asynchronous component that you see outlined on this slide that they can work through at their own pace. The learning objects that they work through dig into research and instructional practices and also provide a structure and environment for educators to discuss their learning with their peers and engage with colleagues while they're applying their learning through different transfer to practice activities. One really key element of CAREI is that we truly do partner with every educator who engages in the course. We consider all activities within the course crucial to solidifying the structured literacy knowledge so that it can be then implemented in the classroom. For that reason, every transfer to practice activity is given feedback by one of our literacy specialists here at CAREI. Likewise, we strive to build internal capacity within districts and schools by building up the role of a district facilitator with CAREI so that the learning and the application, more importantly, can extend long after the CAREI course is over. So that was the asynchronous component of the course. Now let's take a minute to look at what the live component looks like. For each of those 8 modules that you saw earlier, there is a 2-hour live session where our CAREI facilitators build on the knowledge from the asynchronous learning. Participants will engage not only in activities such as data analysis, planning, collaborative discussions around instructional practices, and further learning of research, but they will also discuss what the application looks like with each other. The synchronous components of each module are not a repeat of the asynchronous learning. That's really important. We want to use that time together live to really further ensure that the learning that has taken place is easier to be operationalized when the course is over. What you're seeing here on the slide are just some of the resources that we use to make sure that that the course is very user-friendly. We have an over 300-page CAREI manual that helps guide educators through the course in a scaffolded way so that they have a wonderful resource to carry with them long after the course is over. In addition, the Morphology Quick Reference Guide is given to every participant as well. We all know, too, that most comprehensive professional development courses, of which there are many, do not go into the depth about morphology instruction the way CAREI does. For that reason, educators who may have already done a comprehensive course who would still like to take this deep dive can take advantage of our newest standalone offering, which is the Deep Dive into Morphology course. Just like CAREI, deep dive educators have their own manual that guides them through the experience and are also given the Morphology flipbook. The reason this Morphology flipbook was created is because we know that all the morphological rules, some of which Mariah and Wendy covered a moment ago, there's absolutely no way that anyone could memorize them all. So having this practical teacher-friendly resource allows for teachers to focus on the instruction and have the tool there for digging deeper into specific words and morphemes. As Wendy mentioned, there are so many tools out there and strategies that teachers commonly use to teach morphology. The deep dive course ensures that educators receive modeling and practice on every one of these strategies and more, just like the ones you see on the slide. We would love to engage with any of you in any of our professional development offerings. And on the next slide, there is a QR code that will take you to some more information about Deep Dive into Morphology and CAREI. And my email is on the left in case you would like to reach out to me with specific questions as well. I think Mariah has some good news.
Well, before we get to the winner, Mariah, I see there's a question in the chat. Do you want to answer that? It says, can you explain when you would shift to functional morphology? Or do you use it along with phonics instruction or as a next step?
Well, we're, like I sort of mentioned earlier, we start teaching morphology, even in kindergarten in our functional phonics program as we're teaching plurals, adding S to things like the word cat, and we add the S, or we make that cats, and being really explicit about that. So we're always teaching morphology technically, right? Like across all grade levels. But functional morphology, the program itself, is typically used in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And so a lot of schools we see utilizing functional morphology for their tier 1 core instruction in those particular grade levels. And then we know that some students are still coming to upper elementary with potentially some gaps in their instruction or some phonics needs still. And so we do see many districts utilizing then functional phonics, because when you get functional phonics and morphology, a subscription, you get access to all of the materials across all K-5. And so we see those 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers or interventionists kind of going back into the scope and sequence and utilizing some of the lessons from the functional phonics curriculum to meet some of those needs in tier 2 or sometimes for whole class interventions. We even do see middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, kind of they're sort of thinking about the needs of their middle school students and, not being able to wait for all of the children to go through each grade level of morphology and come up to 6th, 7th, and 8th. And so in some cases, they're using functional morphology as well to fill some of that need and to help students with all those benefits that Wendy shared earlier.
Thanks, Mariah. Looks like we have another question in the chat. I wonder how the scope and sequence of morphology has been developed. Are you talking? Go ahead, Mariah. Are you talking? I guess I was just going to ask for more information. Do you mean for the functional morphology curriculum, J.W. Lee? Yes.
Yeah, so generally, kind of how I explained earlier, the thought process of the different layers of language were put into play there. And in 3rd grade specifically, or series 1, that's where we're still kind of following that simple to complex, and we're thinking about the most common or the highest frequency morphemes. And so when you look at that scope and sequence, you're thinking starting with the most common. We can never teach all the morphemes. We can never know all of them as adults, and we can never teach all of them. And so we really, you're choosing the most common, highest frequency morphemes that would be used and that students would come across in their reading or writing, and especially thinking about those content areas, social studies, science, math, those kinds of things. And then those most common morphemes in series 1 are organized from simple to complex as you go throughout the year. And then, like I said earlier, series 2 and 3 is still thinking about that idea of most common, highest frequency morphemes, but now they're organized by, in series 2, Latin, and then they're organized by themes. So communication or, taking action, those kinds of things. And then the same thing for series 3, it's just you're thinking about the Greek combining forms and those most common Greek combining forms and organizing those into those themes. Hopefully that answered that question for you.
All right. Any other questions? And as Mariah mentioned earlier, we do have on our website a lot of information. So if you want to do a deeper look into that, you can access our website either through the QR code or the link. So with that, we are ready to announce our winner. And it is my son's 29th birthday today. And so I am picking the 29th person on my screen. And the winner is, drum roll please, Lindsay French. Lindsay French, if you are, it looks like you are still on. If you want to email me at my email address there, Mariah can drop it in the chat. We're going to send you your free Morphology flip book.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Lindsay, where are you from?
From Hayfield, Minnesota.
Oh, yay. Well, congratulations. We're very
Awesome. We do use functional phonics and morphology in our K-5 building. So this was super exciting.
Oh, great. Well, hopefully you'll find, do you have the flip book?
We do not have the flip book yet.
Okay, well, this comes along with CAREI, the professional development program, but you will find this very helpful as you're going through using functional morphology. So.
Awesome. I will send you a message.
All right, that sounds good. Well, that's all we have. If you would like more information, you can contact CAREI, and we have several different ways you can do that. As Kim mentioned, Kim, I don't know if you want to say anything here at the end.
Oh, just thanks to my team for such a great presentation, and thanks to all of you for taking an hour out on Minnesota. It's a rainy Thursday night right now, but we appreciate you being here. And yeah, our website's here, our CAREI-wide emails here. We have a LinkedIn page that we're starting to use, and are still on X. So thanks again.
Thank you, everyone. There was one more question. Can you purchase the flip book without taking one of the courses?
Laura, I don't.
No, unfortunately not. But we would love to talk with anyone about how to get that through participation in one of our courses.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, ladies. Well done. Very, very, very informative. Appreciate it.
Thank you for sponsoring.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.